Welcome back to the Barrel Talk Podcast. We are back with another episode. Let's talk about it. Trade season has officially begun. We've had our kind of first meaningful trade after pretty much the day before the December 15th date, which made basically half the league eligible to be traded. We saw Dennis Schroeder go to the Golden State Warriors for basically nothing really. You got DeAnthony Melton, who's hurt his $12 million contract, some little bit of draft capital. So looking at that, trade season has officially started, right? We've already seen more and more rumors. Denver Nuggets are getting involved and trying to get another dynamic scorer. They came out with a whole list of people that they could be interested in. We have some other stuff where, like, the Pelicans going on a fire sale. They've been rumored to only want to keep Yves Missi, Trey Murphy, and Herb Jones. So everybody else on that team has been made available. But before we get into that, I'm making this episode today to kind of give some of my trades, kind of play around. We're obviously on Fans Pro. We're going to be playing around with the trade machine, kind of some of the stuff that I think makes sense at the deadline, and kind of some of the stuff and rumors I feel like don't really make sense for a lot of these teams, and certain guys that I feel like are rumored to be going to certain teams that I feel like don't really make sense. We're going to be started out just talking about some rumors, going over some trades, building some trades from my perspective of what I think works out. But before that, we got some rumors that we need to dive into for sure. So, looking at some of the first rumors, we're going to break down, not really rumor, obviously this trade, Dennis Schroeder trade, what this means for the Golden State Warriors. DeAnthony Melton goes down, his $12 million contract, you had to make something out of nothing with that, with his injury for the rest of the year. Sucks because he was that perfect guard, that perfect piece next to Steph Curry that could just guard, play, make, do a little bit of everything. But now you have to pivot because he gets hurt. Now you go to Dennis Schroeder, who's been playing really, really well for the Brooklyn Nets this year, almost too well to the point where they had to move him for nothing because he was playing so well. So looking at that, you get him for basically nothing that really kills you that was already on your roster other than the DeAnthony Melton, which was an injury. His fit with the Warriors specifically, interested to see how it works out because him as a player, he is very dynamic in the pick and roll. He is somebody that is very, very good at utilizing the pick and roll. In Golden State, when you look at their offense is more so movement-based, even though I wish they would do a little bit more pick and roll just to get Steph Curry just the ball in situations where he's isolated. I feel like there's a lot of situations where there's a lot of off-ball movement, which they've won championships off of this. Let's not get that out of the ordinary. But I feel like at times, there's times where, like, they should just get Steph Curry in a high pick and roll, let him go to work. And now it's going to be interesting because everybody else is really just a movement kind of player on this roster. Dennis Schroeder wants the ball in his hands. He wants to operate in the pick and roll. And I'm interested to see, because we've seen Steve Kerr come out with comments saying that they don't want him to change his identity. They want him to be him. They're not going to expect him to change his entire way he plays with his ability with the Warriors. So I expect them to incorporate a lot more pick and roll situations for somebody like a Dennis Schroeder, somebody where he can get downhill, create out of that, because he's a shot creator. I will give him that over DeAnthony Melton. He's an undersized guard, but the Warriors play small anyways. It's just what they do. They've always found a knack to kind of work around that, and their defense has always been able to raise to that level when needed. So looking at the Warriors, they add another shot creator in that backcourt next to Steph Curry, who is not a slouch defensively either. So, I think this is going to be a really, really good fit. It gives them somebody else that is a real shot creator, right? Because you look at their roster, I feel like that's the misconception with Brandon Podziemski this year. And Steve Kerr has come out and obviously said this recently about his role. He's more of a pure playmaker in the league, not really a shot creator like Dennis Schroeder is. So it kind of is going to alleviate some of that pressure that Brandon Podziemski's had on his shoulders earlier this year, especially to start this year when he's not shooting the ball well. He's asked upon the play make and everything else like that. So Dennis Schroeder is going to take a lot of that responsibility of just going out there. They're going to look at him to just go out there and score. Because offensively, if you're not getting that night from Steph Curry, you got to hope Wiggins and Schroeder, and I think with the addition of Schroeder, Wiggins, and Kuminga, with how Kuminga's been playing, and they're kind of showcasing him in that different light now with Draymond coming off the bench, which I think is super, super interesting in terms of a trade piece move for the deadline. I think that's very interesting of what they're doing. But I love the Dennis Schroeder pickup. I think it's going to work wonders for them. I think he's going to fit seamlessly into what they're doing. But I personally don't have a trade mocked up for the Warriors, because they already made one. I wanted to talk more so about that and now what they could possibly do. So I didn't draw one up really for them. But we can kind of talk about their roster right now, even though I didn't have one drawn up. So you're looking at what they have on their roster now. might be kicking themselves for not going in on Lauri Markkanen, but that's in the past. So looking at what they have on their roster, you're not moving Buddy Hield. You got Gary Payton II, it's about $9 million right here. You have Kyle Anderson's about $8.7 million right there, depending on what you wanted to do. Moses Moody can't be traded this year because of the timing of when he was signed during training camp, so he can't really use him. He's pods if you wanted to go down that avenue of moving him, but they've for some reason made him a little bit too untouchable in my opinion. He's at about $3.5 million. So you're looking at about that 9. If you could put him with that 8.7, you're looking at maybe you could go. One of the things I was looking at was maybe go down the line of maybe a Vucevic, but I do like Kyle Anderson with this team. I love what he's bringing them off that bench in the right situations. I feel like that he's just that depth piece at that wing spot because Gary Payton II, I feel like he's only going to ever really play the way he plays right now with the Warriors in that system. So interested to see where else and what other moves they could do. They obviously have a good amount of draft capital as well that they can tap into. But it's more so about making the money work. Obviously, they don't want to give up Wiggins. I think giving up Wiggins is a bad move. You're not giving up Draymond. You can just trade it for Schroeder. So looking at this, your avenues are really to make it facilitate another trade is Gary Payton II, Kyle Anderson, bigger contracts to make the money work. Then you're looking at Jonathan Kuminga, Podziemski has your young assets to attach in a trade. Maybe you can do like Payton, Kyle Anderson, maybe go get Vuce if you want to go down that route. Maybe because you have the draft capital to kind of push a team. You have a trade exception to about $2 million. So like you can make some things work contract wise. It's just who's going to be available for the Warriors. What's going to be the right fit? They're a team that only really trades for fit. And when you're looking at some of their moves at the deadline in the past couple of years, it hasn't really been a big splash move at the deadline like I think they kind of need to have this year. Even though I really like the Schroeder pickup, I don't know if that moves the needle enough with how some of the things they've been struggling with. But they have some contracts that can make some things work. It could get interesting for the Warriors at the deadline because they still do have a lot of draft capital. Interested to see. I'm pretty sure Dennis Schroeder is going to make his debut. Basically, it'll be tonight by the time this video drops on Thursday night against Memphis. So it's interesting to see if he'll make his debut there. I think he's going to make them a better team right now with what he's going to bring because he is a really, really good NBA player. But I think there's still another move to be made for Golden State. Now we can kind of get into some of the rumors. Michael Porter Jr. Possibly on the move. When you're looking at Denver and what they're able to do in terms of facilitating a trade, their whole thing is like they don't want to break up the core, right? So to make some of the trades that they're to be possibly making, I mean they're at the 5 seed, 14 and 10, but this roster definitely has holes. They're in a weird situation to where they kind of have to move Michael Porter Jr. if they want to get better, right? I don't think you can move Jamal Murray yet. I think that would be a bad move in general just because that dynamic with him and Jokic is still a thing. Even though he has been playing his best basketball, I just think the chemistry that him and Jokic have in that pick and roll in that two-man game, I just don't think you can just kind of trade that and hope that kind of finds that somewhere else, right? Aaron Gordon's your dirty work guy. You can't move him. He's too valuable to this team right now with his rebounding, his defense, with who they have to go up against in the Western Conference. He's somebody you need on that team. He can guard the Brons and the Kevin Durants of the world in the playoff series and stuff like that. So you got to keep him. But really, Michael Porter Jr. and everybody else can go. Other than Westbrook. Westbrook has to stay. Westbrook's been phenomenal for them this year. So you have about $36 million here, about $9 million here in Zeke Naji. You can do some stuff with that. So a lot of the stuff I've been seeing is Zach LaVine to Denver. That's the top name that was kind of rumored. I love that fit. I think if you're the Denver Nuggets, you're paying Zach LaVine about 40. I'll pull it up right now. So you're paying Zach LaVine 43 for 3. Michael Porter Jr. about 36 for 3. Older, yes, not a part of your core, but you're just getting such a more dynamic player and scoring option out of Zach LaVine than you are Michael Porter Jr. right now. And I think that's the key, right? If you're going to trade Michael Porter Jr., you are going to trade him for something like a Zach LaVine, right? Somebody that can be a little bit more dynamic offensively, be able to take the load off of Jokic. Somebody else that can be a threat offensively when Jokic and Murray are off the court, right? So now, it's mainly really when Jokic is off the court. So now, think about if you did this trade, right? Now you could have a lineup where you have Jamal Murray and Zach LaVine on the court together when Jokic is off the floor. That's going to be enough to hold you over offensively until Jokic comes back in, if you know what I'm saying. So, Zach LaVine, I think I would do this move seamlessly if I'm Denver. This is a move you need to kind of make. This would be, like, talent-wise, like, with what everything Zach LaVine brings. I mean, I don't think Jokic has played with a score up to the level of Zach LaVine. And I just think it would be a perfect fit. He's somebody that can catch and shoot, play make a little bit, put the ball on the floor. They would really go out and look at Zach LaVine and was like, hey, we want you to worry about nothing but scoring. We have the play make, we have the defense, we have everything else. We need you to score. Put the ball in the basket. And Zach LaVine, I feel like, has gotten a lot of shade because of his contract and how he's been a little injured over these past couple of years and kind of the Chicago just not being good in general, to where I feel like people forget how good Zach LaVine is as a scorer. And you put him next to a Jokic, Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, Mike Malone. Like, their lineup they're probably closing lineup if this trade were to happen, hypothetically, would be Murray, Westbrook, LaVine, Jokic, Aaron Gordon. It's a good amount of defense in that lineup with Westbrook and Aaron Gordon, especially with how Westbrook has been playing when Jamal Murray, that has elevated his game as well when they're on the court together, him, Jokic, and Westbrook. So looking at that, I think that's a really, really formidable lineup. And I think he's just giving you more than Michael Porter Jr. is at this point. And if you're the Bulls side of things, Michael Porter Jr., 26-year-old, not the youngest player in the world, but he has a contract. You're kind of in the rebuilding mode anyways, to where, like, his contract isn't horrendous, but you're kind of fine with having a Michael Porter Jr. on this team. He's younger than Zach LaVine, and you're just looking to get off the Zach LaVine contract. So going through the trade, it would probably be Michael Porter Jr., Zeke Naji, then you have Zach LaVine, right? So does this trade work just straight up? So yes, it works straight up, okay? So if you're Denver, right? If you're Denver, is there anything else you could get, right? Because this is kind of your only move. This is kind of your only move you have to make with this roster, right? I would include, maybe you do a Dario Saric, and you're trying to just get maybe like Torrey Craig, just to be somebody else that can come off your bench, right? So maybe if this works, like maybe you could do something like this: Zach LaVine, Torrey Craig to Denver, MPJ, Zeke Naji, Dario Saric to the Bulls. They're kind of in a rebuild. You don't really have any draft capital. I don't think you're going to want to give up any of these down the line, unless you're like, you find yourself in the way to like go get that guy. Maybe, like, if you wanted to get wicked, maybe you can throw in, like, just messing around, maybe you can throw in that first. Maybe that can net you somebody like, maybe Ayo. Maybe you're talking about Ayo Dosunmu. Like, something like that, but that doesn't work. So you got to add in another player because the Nuggets don't have any cap space. So you would have to add in, like right here, for this deal to work. Something like that. Maybe if you wanted to throw in that first. Is that first worth Ayo Dosunmu added in? I don't know. Let me know in the comments. But just kind of spitballing, thinking about what kind of avenues Denver could go down. I really like to hear that they're interested in somebody like Zach LaVine, because I think he can bring a whole nother layer to that offense that's already really, really good with Nikola Jokic. He can just add just so much more than Michael Porter Jr. can at this current time, because I really think we've seen what Michael Porter Jr. is as a player, and that's not even a bad thing. He's a 6'10 sniper. But with what Denver needs and what their roster is currently constructed, they need another go-getter shot creator like Zach LaVine, and I think he could definitely add another layer to this team. Another name that they were involved with was Cam Johnson. I just, like, if you're doing this, like, then you just got to overpay. You got to probably throw in that first, because I think Cam Johnson and Michael Porter Jr. is such a lateral move, in my opinion. Like, that's a lateral move. That doesn't make you any like crazy better, right? In my opinion. Let me know in the comments if I'm tweaking. But I don't think this makes you Cam Johnson for Michael Porter Jr. doesn't make you better like Zach LaVine for Michael Porter Jr. does. In my opinion, that's another player that we're rumored towards. If you're going that route, then you're probably wanting to do those three I just had, and then you're trying to look at Cam Johnson and like Dorian Finney-Smith. If you can do something like that, then we can talk, because I feel like that is a really, really good move. Like just looking at it, so we can make it right here. Like if you were to do something like this, throw in Cam Johnson, and you were able to net Dorian Finney-Smith, and you ended up, because you're in the Jokic era, so whatever with these first rounders down the line, right? So if you're the Nets, you're adding Michael Porter Jr. and a very valuable pick. Like that doesn't work. So because the hard cap removed, so you would have to throw in another player. So it would have to be about 2.5. So say you wanted to throw in Julian Strawther, right? Say this was the package, and it still wouldn't work because it would be over the hard cap. So maybe this doesn't happen, right? Just because I didn't do this trade before I started, so maybe this doesn't happen. Maybe you're sitting here thinking maybe we can get Cam Johnson and like maybe Day'Ron Sharpe to be your kind of backup big, because you're going to need one because you're trading Zeke Nnaji. So you need to cut 9. So man, maybe this doesn't work. Maybe it would have to just be like, if you're going after Cam Johnson, maybe it would just have to be like something like this. Yeah, so you still have to add 13 M's. So maybe you could tell yourself, maybe you could throw in Finney-Smith here. Maybe this makes it work. Now you only got cut 1.5. So maybe you can throw them Strawther. Right? So maybe this works out. Yeah. So maybe you could do something like this. I think this moves the needle with Cam Johnson and Dorian Finney-Smith more than just like Michael Porter for Cam Johnson straight up, if you know what I mean. I mean, Julian Strawther, you're fine giving him up and that pick. If you could net both of these two, that can help you right away. That's an avenue I would really like to see. If they're trading for like Cam Johnson, I would like to see them add something like Dorian Finney-Smith in the mix as well. But Cam Johnson, if the move is Cam Johnson for Michael Porter Jr., I think that's such a lateral move. Another name that I've seen them interested in from reports is Jordan Poole. See, this is an interesting one because I don't really know how much Jordan Poole makes you better, right? Because you're trading, if any of these trades, you're trading Michael Porter Jr. Like, does trading Michael Porter Jr., Zeke Nnaji, and Dario to make money work for Jordan Poole and Jonas Valanciunas move the needle? You get better at the backup big spot, but now you're really small at that guard position, right? I'd rather them just go down the Cam Johnson route if they're going to go get Jordan Poole, because you already got Westbrook, Jamal Murray, Christian Braun. Like, you already kind of have that kind of backcourt set. You need a wing scorer, somebody that can throw in that shooting guard, small forward position, like a Zach LaVine, like a Cam Johnson. But I heard the name Jordan Poole, and I was like, that doesn't really move the needle for me, in my opinion, just because of what they have and what they need. So I think their best route, if I'm Denver, is Zach LaVine, because of his spacing and shooting ability, is the best fit. And then if you pivot, can't get that, maybe you go down the Cam Johnson, Dorian Finney-Smith route that I kind of just drew up. Maybe those are kind of the two best options for Denver out of the reports that I've seen. Haven't really seen too much Brandon Ingram. I mean, just because he's a name out there, you pretty much 1-for-1 him and Michael Porter Jr. But it's like Brandon Ingram has fit with the spacing that they do need, and they're going to be able to get from a Zach LaVine. Just different styles. Then you're nitpicking, then you're going at styles. But the move that Denver makes is going to involve Michael Porter Jr. if they do make a move. And his contract makes things very interesting for Denver. Next thing is Miami Heat. Talking about Jimmy Butler. We've seen the Jimmy Butler rumors of kind of like the drama that has gone down with his agent, Shams, as well, of the teams he wanted to go to, which is Dallas, Houston, Golden State, Phoenix as well. Phoenix came from the Shams reports, which started all the drama. But we're kind of let's go through the Dallas Mavericks, right? I don't know how this gets done without them giving up something major. because you have some trade exceptions, right? 16, about 20 mil. About 20, 21 mil, about around there in trade exceptions. So, and this one, you're looking at giving up Clay, Gafford, Cleaver for Jimmy. Does that even, where does that leave us, right? Fail cut 8.5 from Dallas, right? So then you're looking at Najee, like he's making 8. Like then you're throwing in like Dwight Powell. Then it gets tough because then you don't really have anything else to make the money work. Like maybe you throw in Jaden Hardy. Like, see, Jaden Hardy can't be traded, so because of the trade deadline. So maybe you go here, throw in Exum. This works, but this is so much. Really, it doesn't seem like too much, right? Let's go player by player. Klay Thompson, shooting and spacing, it's what you brought him here for. He's kind of had a little bit of an up and down year, but I feel like he's been steady and he's been fine. What I kind of expected from Klay Thompson. Daniel Gafford would be a tough blow. Giving up Gafford would be a tough blow. I know it is Jimmy Butler, but with his dynamic with Lively in that front court, I feel like this would definitely be a tough blow to really sustain. Then you really put a lot of pressure on Derek Lively. So that's interesting. And for a team, so you basically be Luka, Kyrie, Jimmy, PJ, Lively off your bench, Najee, Quentin Grimes, Maxi Prosper has been in the lineup more so recently, Spencer Dinwiddie. I mean, I don't hate it. But I think Dallas needs to stay put. I really like what they have going on right now, and I feel like giving up Gafford would hurt them more than people think, and I think Klay Thompson's just a good fitting piece. And with how good like Quentin Grimes is playing, like Najee Marshall is playing, PJ Washington, I just wouldn't really make any moves if I'm the Dallas Mavericks personally. So we can move on to Golden State Warriors. Another interesting one. Apparently now the top two teams are Warriors and Phoenix, so with this one, it's just like, do the Warriors want to give up Andrew Wiggins for an aging Jimmy Butler, right? Andrew Wiggins having a very, very good year, but now you don't have D'Anthony Melton's 12 point whatever million to include, so now you're looking at Andrew Wiggins, Gary Payton II. They're probably going to want Kuminga as well. Warriors, I just don't think should do this. I don't think they should do this at all. I know Jimmy Butler, Steph Curry, and Draymond could sound really, really good. Jimmy Butler's aging. It could be good for this next 2-year span. But you're going to have to give up so much to get Jimmy Butler just to make even contracts work, even though you do have a bunch of draft capitals where I think it would be just too much to give up. You should probably just pivot and move in another direction. Houston. They're the kind of same to where, like, I know it's Jimmy Butler. The fit is there. But he just doesn't fit their timeline at all, and that 49 million is so much to make up for this Houston team, to where like you might just have to overpay just to get contracts working. Like you're looking at having to give Dylan Brooks up, Steven Adams. You don't have any trade exceptions. You have a load of draft picks, but you have the young talent to just go trade, right? So it's very interesting to see like what avenues that they go down for sure. I just don't really like the Rockets one. I don't really like the Rockets one either because they're going to have to give up a lot of their young talent. And I just feel like even if with the Jimmy Butler addition, they still might not really be enough there, even though I really like that fit, like style-wise. And Miami, that probably nets them like the best return in terms of talent right now. But it's just like, that's still a lot to give up. That's a lot of money to kind of get together to kind of make that trade work. And then the last one, Phoenix Suns. This is more so, if I'm the Suns, why would I not want to get Jimmy Butler for Bradley Beal, basically, because that's what the trade would be. But if you're the Heat, why would I trade Jimmy Butler for Bradley Beal, who has another year on his deal, who's making more money than Jimmy Butler, just barely, but making more money, who's also aging, who plays the same position as Tyler Hero, who is basically our guy right now, right? I mean, maybe you can convince yourself that Tyler Hero, Bradley Beal backcourt could be something, but it's just like, but like if you're trading Jimmy Butler, if you're Miami, you're kind of going into a rebuild. Why would I trade Jimmy Butler for a team where I'm not getting any real young talent, no real draft capital, and the only thing that's really going to make the money work is you're not getting Book or KD, is Bradley Beal, who like doesn't fit your timeline. It doesn't fit where you're going as a team if you move off of Jimmy Butler. This would legit just be like, and I can tell you right now, Pat Riley ain't making this kind of move, moving Jimmy Butler for nothing. He'd rather just keep him and just play his cards in the offseason than trade him at the deadline for somebody like Bradley Beal, who's going to really do nothing for them and what they're doing going forward, right? So all those options, I think the Rockets one fit-wise is probably the best, but all these teams that he's interested in is giving up like a load to get him, right? Is giving up a ton. And like the packages, like you're probably getting the best package from the Rockets and then the Warriors with their young talent and draft picks. Like Phoenix isn't really offering you anything of a package other than like Bradley Beal, and like how much does that move the needle for you realistically? Very interesting to see though. But we can kind of get into some of the trades I had made up. And we've already talked about the Pelicans fire sale, which we'll get into during these trades. But we can start out here, right? Start out with the Miami Heat. And there's a team out here that I haven't seen being rumored, which I think if they got their name in the hat, it would be a very interesting shift in the Western Conference. I have the Memphis Grizzlies. A team that is very young, but not like overly young like the Rockets are. The Grizzlies are there. The difference between the Grizzlies and the Rockets, the Grizzlies are there. The Grizzlies have already arrived. The Grizzlies have already been in a playoff run before. They've had this core. They've been in the playoffs before. So them adding Jimmy Butler is just icing on the top. And fit-wise, I think it works. A little bit questionable about the spacing and what they're going to have to do there. But the Memphis Grizzlies, they need to add an addition to the small forward position. And I think if they got to the deadline, because Memphis is the 2 seed right now out west, if you're looking at what they could possibly do at this year's deadline, I think it could be very interesting. I think this could be a definite spot for Jimmy Butler that kind of comes out of nowhere for the Memphis Grizzlies. So the trade I had is Memphis gets Jimmy Butler, Haywood Highsmith, and the Grizzlies are sending Marcus Smart, Brandon Clark, Luke Kennard, G.G. Jackson, a first this year, unprotected, and then 2027 top 5 protected. For Jimmy Butler, Haywood Highsmith, this would be your trade, right? And then if you're the Miami Heat, you're getting G.G. Jackson, who the Miami Heat are great at developing, who G.G. Jackson's already really, really good as is right now. You're adding a young talent. You're adding a first-round pick this year to your already first-round pick this year as well. You're adding a top 5 protected pick in 2027. That one will probably convey. So you're going to get Jimmy Butler and Haywood Highsmith if you're the Grizzlies. So now you're running Ja, Bane, Jimmy Butler, Triple J, Zach Edey, or if you wanted to go like, see what would this roster look like with a Jimmy Butler, and the Heat would now have, so they don't even have their first round pick this year, so they would add a first round pick from Memphis this year, so they would be Ja, Bane, Jimmy Butler, Triple J, Zach Edey. You can throw Aldama in there as well, put Triple J at the 5. You still have Vince Williams. You still have Jay Huff. You still have Jalen Wells. You still have Scottie Pippen Jr., who's been really, really good this year. So you have a good, and Jimmy Butler, I feel like adds another dynamic to this team. And you still have the spacing with the Desmond Bane and a Triple J. So, like, you're not, like, this is a really, and you're adding Haywood Highsmith with Vince Williams off your bench, like, with everything they have, Young coming off that bench. He would add a really, really good layer to what they have. And if you're the Miami Heat, like I said, you're adding 2 first-round picks to some draft capital that you're limited. You're adding G.G. Jackson, has a young up-and-coming guy who has all the potential in the world for you to tap into and develop. You can have a flippable contract in Brandon Clark and Marcus Smart. Marcus Smart might mess around and flip. You can flip him for like a first. Luke Kennard is somebody you can flip as well. So you're getting a young player, 2 first-round picks, and flippable contracts for more draft capital. But in the other trades, other than the Rockets one, you're looking at, yeah, you could net Jonathan Kuminga, who you're going to have to pay, right? G.G. Jackson still has 3 years left on his deal. Like, looking at this, I think this is a win-win for both sides. A win-win for both sides. I think this is probably the most ideal package that the Miami Heat are looking for. You get draft capital, young player for an aging Jimmy Butler who you really don't have too much leverage with, who you're just trying to get something for him while you can. And I feel like at this year's deadline, if Memphis is still healthy and afloat at that top of the Western Conference, this could add a very big shift into the top teams in the Western Conference, which I think could be very interesting. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of Jimmy Butler to the Grizzlies, because I think this is a very interesting team scenario, which makes sense, and the package is a lot better than a lot of the other teams I've seen kind of be mentioned for the Miami Heat side of things. Now, another trade was involving the Memphis Grizzlies. This was if they don't and they pivot and they go down the route of getting a small forward, getting some more shooting. This is a pretty simple one. You're adding Cam Johnson. You're giving up Brandon Clark, Luke Kennard, and 2 firsts, and the same 2 firsts that you would get for Jimmy Butler. So this would be the trade to go get Cam Johnson if you're the Memphis Grizzlies, to kind of pivot. Maybe you don't do that Jimmy Butler trade. Maybe that never comes about. You go and add some more shooting and Cam Johnson to shore up that small forward position. I mean, you're getting this. Brooklyn, I mean, you're not getting 2 firsts for Cam Johnson. I think it's a good return. Because if you're a Memphis side of things, you can get Cam Johnson and still keep Marcus Smart, G.G. Jackson, Vince Williams. Like, you still have a lot to work with. And if you're the Nets, then you're adding 2 more first-round picks to the haul that you already have. So now you're looking at 2025 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, if that conveys 5 first-round picks if you were to do this deal for the Brooklyn Nets. And then you add a 2027 first-round pick, and now you're looking at 2027 with 1, 2, 3, 4 picks in 2027. So looking at that, you can add just some more draft capital on top of the stuff you already have going into the future. And Cam Johnson, you're not in 2 firsts for him. I think this will be a good return for both sides. Next, we do have, now we're getting into another team. Talking about the Lakers. The Lakers have been rumored to get a wing and a big. They're in an interesting spot because they have a lot of good contracts to make trades happen. With D'Lo, Rui, Gabe Vincent. So, like, looking at what they have, I'm so shocked that they haven't found a way to make a trade happen earlier. But this is what I came up with. So you need a big to play with next to Anthony Davis. You need a wing. I think you could use another guard as well. You have contracts to make it work. Here's what I came up with. Let me know in the comments what y'all think. Harold Washington. They're already linked to Jonas Valanciunas as well. So you're going to trade Jonas Valanciunas, Kyle Kuzma, and Malcolm Brogdon. So you're getting your guard, your wing, and your big that you need and that they've been rumored to want. All guys that Washington will probably have no problem giving up. You're going to give up D'Lo, who they could possibly just buy out. Rui Hachimura back to Washington, another flippable player for them. You're adding Gabe Vincent. You're getting a young player in Max Christie, who has shown flashes already with the Lakers. You're getting Jalen Hood-Schifino in this deal as well. And you're adding on top that Lakers 2030 top 5 protected pick. So this is the trade. If you're Washington, you're getting off Kyle Kuzma, off Malcolm Brogdon, off Jonas Valanciunas, all guys you have no problem with trading. You're bringing in Max Christie to be a part of that young core and what they got going on over there. He's already extended, got 4 years, very team-friendly deal. Flippable contract in Rui Hachimura. Same with Gabe Vincent. You're adding this pick. This is what you're coming here for. This is what you're doing. Now, I put a protection on it. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of the protection. Put a protection on it because I feel like a little bit like you're getting good pieces for right now, but you're not getting like that guy. You know what I mean? You're not having to, like, if it was that guy, unprotected pick, but top 5 protected in 2030, I feel like it's fine. If you want to put no protections on it, just let me, like, it will be fine as well. I see both sides. Adding Jalen Hood-Schifino, who the Lakers haven't really developed. So you're getting 2 young players, some flippable contracts, and you're getting a very valuable first-round pick if you wanted to do unprotected as well. I see that side as well. 4, 3 guys that you don't really need, and you already have a abundance of seconds and everything else. You have a ton of draft capital, so you're adding this to what you already have to your draft capital as well. So I think this trade works for both sides. Washington's going to be selling at the deadline. Lakers get what they need, give up some pieces that don't really affect them in their lineup right now. So now you're running a lineup of probably Brogdon, Reeves, Kuzma, Braun, AD. And off your bench, you'd have Connect, Vanderbilt whenever he gets healthy, Cam Reddish, Jonas Valanciunas. So, like, you get what you need if you're the Lakers side of things in this trade. I've seen them linked to, like, Cam Johnson and stuff like that as well, which could be interesting. If they could find a way to net Cam Johnson and Dorian Finney-Smith, kind of like what I had Denver doing, and they can make the contracts work right there, that would also be interesting as well. But the Lakers are going to have to make some kind of move. I might lean this move a little bit more than the Cam Johnson, Dorian Finney-Smith, because I really like the Malcolm Brogdon pickup. I think he's the perfect guard to kind of have for this team. Jonas Valanciunas gives you a big with some spacing abilities next to AD, and Kyle Kuzma kind of just gives you just a better version of what Rui Hachimura was giving you, kind of a more scoring efficiency version of what Rui Hachimura was giving you. But I really like that trade for the Lakers if they were able to make something like that happen. But I said I liked the Cam Johnson and Dorian Finney-Smith rumors as well of them trying to go get one of those guys. And I think if they can get both of them, ideal. Really like that trade because I think it works out good for both sides. Now, another trade I mocked up, kind of starting this Pelicans fire sale, Detroit 11-16. Really, like, good year compared to last year for what they were last year. Bickerstaff's done a great job. If you're Detroit, your mindset, not the best market. You're going to have to kind of take some swings to kind of bring in some of the players to help Cade Cunningham. Adding a Brandon Ingram and seeing how it works for the remainder of the year, I love. I mean, you're in a situation where the Pelicans are at a fire sale, and you could probably buy low on Brandon Ingram. And they have trade exceptions to make something like this work seamlessly. You throw in Tobias Harris, and you're just giving them this 2026 pick, top 3 protected. Now you can say, like, the value here. Oh, I didn't throw it in the trade. So you can say the value here, right? Oh, they're only getting Tobias in a first for Brandon Ingram. What leverage do they have? They've already said and came out and said that they're doing a fire sale, right? Are they going to just lose Brandon Ingram from nothing, right? They've already proven they don't want to bring him back. You're already telling the team that trades for him that you have to pay Brandon Ingram already long term. And I think Detroit would be fine with that because of how small of a market they are to kind of bring in talent next to Cade, and BI would be a great thing to have, giving them another go-to scorer. Kind of just replacing Tobias Harris, being a better version of Tobias Harris, more consistent version of Tobias Harris. So, like, looking at that, what leverage do the Pelicans have? I mean, what else would you throw in this trade, right? So you're getting the first top 3 protected next year. Detroit thinking they could bring Brandon Ingram back and be fine. So, like, what else would you get, right? Like, there's nobody you would even really want, right? Like, maybe you convince, like, maybe Marcus Sasser, like, what like, they don't really have, there's nothing else that if I'm the Pelicans I would want outside of maybe throw in, like, 2 seconds as well, right? Maybe you do something like this. Maybe throw in 2 seconds as well, right? With that first. So now it's Tobias, 2 seconds in the first for Brandon Ingram. Maybe you get something like that. I don't even think you get that done. Like, I don't even think you get that done. That's how much leverage I think the Pelicans don't have in this situation, because they're kind of at the deadline like, man, we just got to get something for Brandon Ingram. Tobias Harris is a flippable contract or whatever. You bring in another first, so now you got a first in 22 first next year. One that's already, like, so you're in a good spot. I think you're in a good spot if you were able to do this, especially for the Pelicans. You got to get something for Brandon Ingram. You already said you're going on a fire sale. If you're Detroit, now you're looking at possible play-in push. Looking at Cade, Ivy, B.I., Isaiah Stewart, Tim Hardaway, Asar Thompson whenever he gets back playing, Fontecchio, Jalen Duren, Malik Beasley. So you have more to work with, but that scoring dynamic that you could have with B.I. and Cade, who's been phenomenal this year, and you still have the Ron Holland and Asar Thompson with the upside, so you have your young talent there. I like Isaiah Stewart. He's been a lot better than Jalen Duren this year. Like, you still have shooting and spacing around this team with Tim Hardaway and Malik Beasley, who's been great this year. Like you add Brandon Ingram to this Pistons team. I'm not saying they're making a playoff hunt, like, deep in the playoffs, but they'd be a frisky team in that Eastern Conference with Cade and B.I. and what they have going already. So they could be a frisky team. I really, really like this trade. Show it one more time. So something like this, right? Maybe not the 2 seconds. Maybe it's Tobias in just the first. So, like, maybe let me know in the comments what you guys think about that one. Next one, we are going to the Orlando Magic. Okay. Now, a lot of these trades were kind of built off the rumors that I saw out there. Pelicans, like I said, are making a fire sale. They're in an interesting spot. Has a team. So I came up with this trade. They're kind of trying to just wash their hands with the DeJounte Murray situation. Doesn't feel what they want to do. I thought about CJ, but then I pivoted to DeJounte. I was like younger. Kind of fits more of what they're doing already over there. They could use another scoring option outside of Paolo and Franz. So here's what I made. DeJounte Murray for Cole Anthony, Anthony Black, and Caleb Houston. So this was the trade. Didn't have them throwing in any draft capital because you're already getting a young player in Anthony Black and Caleb Houston, who both have multiple years left on their contract. And you're throwing Cole Anthony in there to make the money work. If you were to throw in the draft picks, I mean, you have abundance of draft capital. If you're the Magic, you could throw them this Denver pick that's going to be in the late 20s. I mean, that just added the Pelicans getting another draft pick right here. I mean, if you're the Pelicans, you're on a fire sale. You're kind of going into that rebuild mode. This would give you 1, 2, 3 first-round picks this year. Plus Anthony Black, Caleb Houston, and Anthony Black fits the timeline of your Trey Murphy, Jordan Hawkins, Yves Missi, Herb Jones. Like, he fits that timeline. He can kind of turn into that point guard for you, that DeJounte Murray replacement. And the Orlando Magic, if you're doing this deal, DeJounte Murray's just a better player than Anthony Black right now. You kind of have still been lacking that true point guard. And DeJounte Murray can be that for you. Like, DeJounte Murray can fit seamlessly next to Franz, Paolo, Suggs. So now you're looking at a lineup of DeJounte Murray, Jalen Suggs, Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero, Wendell Carter. And off your bench, you have KCP, John Isaac, Mo Wagner, Batazzi, Gary Harris. You still have Da Silva, Jet Howard. Like this trade makes sense for both sides, in my opinion. Pelicans are kind of looking to go into a retool/rebuild. Anthony Black, Caleb Houston, two really, really good young players to have. I could even argue throwing in somebody like Jet Howard as well if you needed to. For DeJounte Murray, and if you're the Orlando Magic, this gives you really a shot in the arm with what they have defensively going already. You add another dynamic scoring option that can also defend, can really open the door for the Orlando Magic being able to make a deeper run in the playoffs compared to what they already have, because I think they're a good team right now, still have some limitations, but you had DeJounte, like that starting five defensively, and you add another shot creator to that with DeJounte, Suggs, Franz, Paolo, and Wendell, whatever big you wanted to start. Like, and you're adding KCP now as a bench piece, like then you're really getting into it, man. Like, you're really maximizing the most of that Paolo $12 million contract before you got to pay him and everything else. So, like, you're in a great avenue if you can pull this off, if you're the Orlando Magic. And if you're the Pelicans, retool, rebuild, you pick up some young players. I think that's fine. A good return for DeJounte. You're kind of washing your hands with that situation as well. Next, we have two more trades. Yep, two more trades that I came up with. We have Sacramento Kings. Kind of in a little bit of a desperation mode. I think I have a feeling we're going to start to see some De'Aaron Fox talk soon. There's been reports he said he wants to obviously retire in Sacramento, but he also wants to win, so that's top priority. So they're in a position to where, like, they need defense badly. They can score. Man, can they score. They can get up and down, but they need some defense. In a big way. It was hard to kind of figure out kind of what the trade was here, because they have some sizable contracts to make something work in Kevin Huerter, Trey Lyles, but you're not moving any of these four right now, and Keegan Murray. So you're not moving any of them. Still waiting to see Devin Carter play. Keon Ellis, who's been, in my opinion, better than Kevin Huerter already this year. So the trade was pretty simple. It's Robert Williams and Matisse Thybulle adding some defense for Kevin Huerter and a 2027 first-round pick. This is the trade. you're adding 2 high caliber defensive weapons. I know Robert Williams is not always healthy, but he gives you a way better option, has a backup, and gives you a more dynamic defensive option, has a backup than like Trey Lyles, Alex Lynn. So you're perfectly fine adding a defensive weapon in the big spot in Robert Williams that can switch, block shots. When he's healthy, he's a great defensive player, right? And he gives you kind of a difference maker compared to Sabonis defensively. Then you have Matisse Thybulle, who can come off your bench. Obviously not the shooter, but you have shooting and spacing. You're not worried about that. You need defense. You need point of attack defenders. Now you're looking at him compared with a Keon Ellis defensively. Devin Carter is going to be a good defender when he gets back healthy, no doubt. So you have those 3 point of attack defenders on top of your offense. Then you're really talking. But both of these guys need to stay healthy. Both of these guys can have some injury concerns, but that's the risk you're kind of willing to take. They're kind of in a little bit of a desperation mode right now. 12 seed in the Western Conference at 13 and 14. And you're giving up Kevin Huerter, who, in my opinion, Keon Ellis has just been playing better. Fits what you need right now. So if you're the Blazers, you're picking up a first-round pick for 2 guys that you were hoping to net a first for, but you're trading them both in the same package to get a first-round pick for, which is perfectly fine because it's going to be hard to move both of these guys because the health is always a question. But if they're healthy and they can be added to the Sacramento Kings team, I feel like this is a low-risk kind of reward for the Kings. Adding both these 2 guys on really good team deals for 2 years, I think it could open up that window a little bit more for you defensively and kind of raise that ceiling for you defensively. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about the Sacramento Kings. They're kind of a hard team to make a trade for, but I feel like this is something I could come up with that makes sense for them to do. And then my last trade was the Cleveland Cavaliers. Cleveland Cavaliers, 23-4 on the season. They're just going to go make the move at small forward. They're going to go bring in Dorian Finney-Smith for Niang, Dean Wade, and I have on here, give up these seconds. Give up these seconds. Go get you a small forward that's going to help you defend when you go up against a team like Boston, New York. Like, this trade obviously doesn't really do anything for the Nets. You're netting 3 seconds if you're the Nets, and you're not really getting anything player-wise. But Dorian Finney-Smith is kind of like the Dennis Schroeder kind of realm of he's just making you too good right now. You kind of have to get rid of these good players to kind of tank and to go where you want to go in the draft. So giving up Dorian Finney-Smith is kind of like comparable to like a Golden State-esque trade to get Dorian Finney-Smith to Cleveland and to just kind of, if you're the Nets in this case, just get worse. And if you're Cleveland, now you're looking at Garland, Mitchell, Finney-Smith, Mobley, Allen. Defensively, you add a layer. Now you got shooting and bunches coming off your bench now. Isaac Okoro's a bench piece. You have Max Strus, Karis LeVert off your bench, who's been great this year. Jalen Tyson, who's been hit or miss in terms of playing time. He's kind of fell in the shuffle, but Ty Jerome's been great for them as a backup guard this year. The only other thing you could possibly say, maybe you put in like, maybe you put in something else to try to get like, maybe you can net like Day'Ron Sharpe or Noah Clowney. You just have a better big than Tristan Thompson coming off your bench. But this is the trade I did end up coming up with right here. And Dorian Finney-Smith for Georges Niang and Dean Wade. Some seconds. Feel like this is fair trade for both sides. I mean, just got to go in a different direction comparable to the Dennis Schroeder trade, like I said. But this is kind of all the trades I had based on some of the rumors that I've been seeing. Talking about some of the rumors like the Michael Porter Jr., Zach LaVine, Dennis Schroeder trade talk that just went down, Jimmy Butler destinations, what makes sense, what doesn't. Playing around with the trade finder based on rumors that I have seen. I feel like this is going to be one of the more interesting and entertaining trade deadlines we've seen in a while because there's a lot of competing teams just out there and about that are looking to add some pieces to make a deep playoff run because I want to say the playoff race is open, but it's not. It's in an interesting spot to where if you're a team that got hot at the right time, I feel like with the talent in the league, I feel like anything can happen. But that is all I have for kind of creating trades, talking about trade rumors. In this episode, let's talk about it. Thank you guys for tuning into the episode. Hope to see you tune in to future episodes.